viewers, wherever you are, hello and welcome to this new episode of your program, Spectra. Immigrating to a new country, especially in the New World, is a great dream for a lot of people around the world. But like any great dream and any big goal, it comes with a price. It comes with, I wouldn't really go as far as to say a sacrifice, but it comes with a risk. And it's not only a risk in terms of career and savings, no. It comes with a risk regarding the human intellect, the spirit, the morals, the values, the virtues, and the vices. Because when you immigrate to a new adoptive country, you have a daily close encounter with different ways of thinking, different beliefs, and different attitudes. When you come as an immigrant, you are a first-generation immigrant. But a lot of immigrants come along with young kids with them. And sometimes those kids are born in this new adoptive country. As soon as the kids go to school, they start growing up, clashes happen. It's the meeting of two different worlds. It's the world of the parents, first generation, versus the world of the kids, second generation. They come from two different worlds. Their references might be different. So what is the effect of this transfer? And how would a person's life differ if they grew up in their country of origin or if they grew up in their new adoptive country? To talk about this in depth and to really delve deeply into it, I'm really delighted tonight to be accompanied by two very distinguished ladies. I'm really delighted to have them with me. And as you know, ladies first, so both of them are very gentle ladies, so I just have to take it by alphabetical order. So I'm starting with Nurhan Mahmoud, who is joining us today from Canada. Nurhan, hello and welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure to have you. And second, again, in alphabetical order, no more and no less, is Yasmin Hossam from Egypt. Yasmin, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So it's a real pleasure to have both of you with me tonight. And the very interesting fact that I would like to share with our viewers is that both of these very special ladies here with me, they are at very similar ages, and both of them are teachers. So there's a big resemblance between both of them, or is there? Let's find out. So this is the way it'll go. I'll take it alphabetically. So I'll be posing a question to Nurhan and then to Yasmin. And then, of course, if either of you would like to comment at any time, feel absolutely free. Okay, so to start off, like at the very beginning, when you first went to school, how were the first few days in school? How did the school receive you, Nurhan, here in Canada? You came, as far as I understand, you came here as a young little girl, but you received like your education, you know, your secondary, middle school, and all kinds of education here. So yeah. How did the school receive you here in Canada?
So I arrived to Canada when I was in grade 6, which later on I understood that that's a very difficult age to be moving, and because you think at that age that you have your friends, you have your life set, and you're suddenly taken from your comfort zone and put into a new one, and you have to, you know, build everything from scratch. So when we arrived, I actually didn't speak any English, zero. I had a very thick French accent because I was in the French schools in Saudi Arabia, and I didn't speak any English. I was in a French school here, but everybody speaks English. So it was really hard for me to kind of blend in or make friends because all they did was speak English. It was really hard. And not only that, but I moved in the middle of the year. I think it was actually around this time. It was in March.
Okay.
So they already had their groups. They've been together all year, if not since kindergarten. And I'm this new girl who doesn't speak English, from another country. And I actually dressed a little bit differently. They had these like cooler clothes. And I was, you know, the new girl who dressed a little bit odd. So honestly, for maybe the first year and a half, it was really, really hard for me to make friends. I couldn't fit in, and I didn't understand what their thinking was, and just I was different, and I felt it. But eventually, we accepted those differences, and we learned to live with those differences. But at first,
we'll get to this absolutely. I want to
yeah.
know the whole story. I'm
Yeah.
not leaving both of you today until I know the whole story. Sure.
Yeah. So at the beginning, honestly, it was really hard, and especially at that age. I think my sister was younger, and I think I see her growing up, and I think it was much easier for her. She came in grade 1. My brother is born here. But for me, at that age, 10, 11, it was really hard. And I think for my parents, at one point, they were confused, like, why am I not making friends? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with the school? What's wrong with the people around me? But it was really, really hard at first. And I remember those moments because it's just, I would go home for the longest time and cry and just, I felt lonely and, you know, different.
Well, thank you very much, Nurhan, for shedding light on this. And you came here, you started at grade 6, which is ideal actually, because this is the time when kids start realizing their differences, or it's like the inception of the character at that age. Before that time, the differences are not really apparent, but the differences start to arise at that age. Now, moving to Yasmin. What are your memories of like your elementary or primary school? What are the highlights? Again, we're not going into details yet. We will definitely go into full details, but just generally, what are the highlights of your elementary school? What can you remember? What can you share with us?
Well, first I was in a French school also, but inside Egypt, and then I transferred to an English school. So I had a little bit experience like Nurhan, but because of the language barrier, I was always like, my second language was French and their second language was English when I transferred. So I also had a little bit of a language barrier, a little bit of bullying, maybe because I know French, they know English, I don't know English. And then it took me about a year until I started to fit in. But the difference that they had, like, we were nearly the same in, you know, traditions, knowing each other, wearing a little bit like each other and so on. So I didn't take much time. It was only the struggle with the language itself. And then I started to have friends and the bullying started to get like decreased. And I started to have fun, love to go to school. But before that, it was so difficult. And I was also going home and crying, and why are they dealing with me like that? Is she showing off with her friends or something? And then everything was getting better. That's it.
So you think you took a much shorter time than, like,
yeah.
for example, to blend in, because the barrier might have been just like, you know, a first foreign language or like the first, second language, but no more. like the cultural backgrounds are similar, so you were able to fit in, assimilate easier than someone else. Now, you sort of answered the question, but my second question to both of you, actually, but I would like to get a little bit more detail. So, Nurhan, did you like going to school?
So at first, obviously, no. It was really, really hard. And we're just, you know, like I could see my parents trying also to blend in within the society. So it was a struggle at first, just dealing with everything. And I think when you're at that age, you know a lot more than what your parents want you to know, because, you know, grade 6, you understand a lot, even though you're a child, but we always underestimate kids that age. So no, I did not like going to school. It was really hard. I did like at first the attention, because I spoke a very good French, because I went to like a French school. So it was getting a lot of attention. They liked it. But then eventually I was like, you know, the animal at the zoo, everybody was watching. So it was no longer fun after a certain point. But eventually I did like it. And I think it started to get better, and I started to understand better around grade 8, 9. And that's when I started to make friends. And then things got better, but at first it was, school was no good for me.
But later on, as you sort of blended in, things started, you really liked to go to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Friends became like my second family. Like we had our own group, and it was a lot of fun.
Great. And definitely we'll getting more into this. But now moving to Yasmin, the same question. Did you always like going to school from like beginning to end, from your elementary school until your high school?
Well, I like to go to school, except for some days they were boring to me. I think we would talk about this more because of the sessions. Maybe they're more theoretical more than practical. And sometimes I was having fun, but other times I was feeling, I had a problem. For example, when I was in grade 8 or something, I really can't forget it. It was about a girl. She used to bully me. She wanted me, like, she was always wanted me to be the only friend. But I was having an issue, like searching for who is going to solve my problem. We didn't have maybe a discipline department or something, someone who's responsible to solve the issues. And I didn't want to go at all. So it was a difficult time for me. It was like for a whole year. And but then when the issue was solved, I started to, like, I wanted to go back to school. But the rest of the days it was good.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Yasmin. And okay, so now let's talk about your relationship with teachers. And when I say your relationship with teachers, was it a relationship of superiority? So, like somebody having the upper hand and somebody having the lower hand. How much freedom, how much space, how much intellectual space did you have with your teachers? How much freedom of thought were there? How much freedom of behavior were there with teachers? So please, Nurhan.
It's actually a very interesting question, because, I've never thought about this before you asked. And I feel like it was a mix and match. We live in a community that is, very diverse. So teachers, or I want to say or immigrants, come with a certain mentality. So they maintain certain ideologies when they're teaching. So I find that we still had teachers who had that, that needed that, to have that authority when we had other teachers who, my students are different. They kind of have, like, they can decide with me and things like that. So I feel like it was a mix and match when I think about it, especially in high school. It's really hard teaching. I don't teach that age, but it's really hard teaching that age. So I feel like it was really a mix and match, and it was depending on the teacher and just how they think and how they were brought up or how they were taught.
But if we talk about like the teachers who were like grew up here, so not the first generation teachers, but teachers who grew up here in Canada, how did they interact with you? How much freedom did you have with them? Freedom of thought and behavior in their classes?
I feel like we had a lot of freedom. That's for sure. It's you know, when I think about it, we even had a teacher who you know, we loved so much that during lunchtime we would go see her just to chat, and it was okay. It was normal. Hey, madam, you know, we just came by to say how you're doing, and she would let us into her office and chat with us. You know, teachers, I think I do the same with my students. Sometimes it'd be like, okay, so would you prefer doing the test that day or that day? Some things like that, instead of imposing, okay, the test is that day, you have to be ready for that day. Or would you prefer the test to be that format or that format? We kind of, and I'm talking about high school, obviously, because this is where, you know, things are, the relationships with teachers are different than in elementary.
This is the more rigid area, really, like in
yeah,
high school, and yeah, absolutely.
and yeah, so this is it.
So yeah, like it's the stage when students are like mostly rebellious, really, against any form of authority.
And I think now that I'm a teacher, I understand, you know, some of the strategies that teachers use to gain our trust, to have us, you know, kind of be good students. At that time, we do not understand all those things, just like we don't understand why our parents do some things. But when you grow out of it, you look back and you're like, oh, so that's why they did that, and it actually worked, or they did that and it did not work. So yeah, you see things differently.
Yeah, depending on the perspective, depending on where you are really in the picture.
Yeah, exactly.
And Yasmin, like, how was your relationship with your teachers? How much freedom did you have with your teachers?
I think based on our Egyptian culture at that time, now it's a little bit like more open. But at my time, most of the teachers were dealing the same way, most of them being formal, not giving us much space, maybe to talk or to get into our personal life or to get into their personal life so we can feel more connected, or like the bond was weak. I was even one of the students who was always asking some curiosity questions, and I was being blocked, or like, just stop, just learn it as it is. So why? No, I'm not gonna tell you why now. But very, very few teachers, you're always trying to reach me. You were always trying to get out the best of me, and telling me more about your personal life, asking me more about my personal life. So we had more connection, more bonding, and also my French teacher was doing the same. So it really differs now, as I'm a teacher now. When I do this with my students, they understand me more, I reach their problems more, I can improve their skills and their way of thinking and solve their problems, maybe even psychologically, not only related to academics.
So when you bridge the gap between, like, you know, you and the students, there isn't this chasm that, like, you know, you're in two different worlds.
Yeah.
But at that time you would say, like, there was always that difference in most of the cases, with very, very minor exceptions. Yes. Okay, and how was your relationship with your classmates? And I just can't hold myself from asking the question, male and female classmates, if there were. How was that like in school for both of you, starting again with Nurhan?
So I went to it's a mixed school. Like I said, at first it was really hard. And I think coming from, like I grew up in Saudi Arabia, so I was really trying to reach out more to the girls. I wanted to be friends more with the girls because this is the environment we grow up in, like the girls kind of stick together and you mix and match here and there, but mainly you have your girl crew because, this is the girls. Eventually, I want to say I was very fortunate to grow up in a very, very diverse school. We come from all backgrounds, really like all backgrounds. And I was able to find people with similar backgrounds or similar values and beliefs. And I think that's what helped me develop an actual relationship with some friends, boys and girls, that we maintained until today. And another thing, and I think I was also fortunate in that aspect, is that we were a very small group. So the graduates, I think in grade 12, there was only 35 of us, which is really rare in here, but it's a French school again. So it's very, very small. I was limited with my choices of friends, but I was able to find good and make good relationships in that group.
That's great. And Yasmin?
Well, first we were like for 2 years we were mixed, and then we were divided based on gender. But based on like my relationship was okay, but we had limits due to the closed school culture. So we will always have some restrictions while dealing with boys and so on. So I was okay as long as I'm putting limits and as long as I'm following the restrictions of the school. And but I don't have a problem. And then when we were divided, I started having friends with girls, but I had a problem with dealing with boys outside the school. So this was the gap. When I've been divided, I had a problem with communication. I forgot how to deal with males. It was a problem for me when I went to university after that.
Oh, yeah, that's a very critical point here. And the follow-up question for both of you actually is, what was the home's reaction? Like, how did your parents react to you, starting with Norhan here, having friends from a different gender? Like, both of your parents grew up in, like in their own mother culture. Mm-hmm. So now that their daughter is growing up in the new adoptive culture, how did they react to it? Like you having other friends from different genders?
So I think my parents at first, they were really scared. I was in an age where, you're developing, right? So, and I think they became very strict just out of protection because they did not know what to expect. So for my parents, it was a big no. There's no need for that. You're too young for that. So, just be friends with the girls. It's okay. So it was really hard. Eventually they opened up to it. But I think it's just out of fear of losing cultures, losing values. So they were really strict on certain aspects that obviously they brought with them, and they were raised in that way. But eventually it's all good.
And were there any conflicts can you remember like any sort of conflicts or difference in views between you and your parents? Like, was there any sort of clash between the two civilizations at home?
All the time. Up until now, we even vote for different political parties.
Whoa, okay.
But yeah, it's I think my parents are set in their ways. I still have a younger brother, so I think they're set in their ways just to maintain, that culture. Or I think it's important for them to build a base, and then from there you make your own choices, but at least to have that base. So they would really set on certain things just because it's to them, it's important to maintain that. So yes, there was a lot of clashes.
What did you think at that time? Like when they, like when the pop culture, like the general culture of the school and everybody around you in the country, where you go in one way and then your parents would ask you to go the other. How did you receive that? How did you receive this?
I hated it. I did not understand. Like, why is this happening to me? Why am I the only one not allowed to do this? Why am I the only one that still doesn't have a cell phone? Why am I the only one that's not on MSN all night? Like, why am I the only one that doesn't watch this movie? Why am I the only one that hasn't seen this music video? So all those little things, I really felt like I was disconnected for a big portion of the culture here and or the culture at that age. And I remember even at times I would pretend to know, because I thought, you know, that's what would make people accept me more. Now I look back and obviously I feel like I do not need to do this. But at that time, as a new immigrant, the new girl, you know, also on top of that, I'm going to be missing out on all those things. So no, I'm going to pretend a little bit just to be able to fit in. It's really, really hard coming from all those things. And my parents were just doing their best to maintain that base. And since they did not go to school here, they don't see what's happening behind the scene. They don't see what's happening there, what people are saying, what they're doing, how they're acting. They hear all these things, right? They hear all these things from other parents who struggled or the media. So they're scared for us, and they put all these rules in place that we have to follow.
So when you talk to them about something like a prom or like going out with a a group of boys and girls and going to like a boy's birthday party and so on, was it like a strict no? Was there like discussion? What was going on?
Yeah, boy's birthday party was a strict no. There was no negotiation in that. And I think maybe the only time it was allowed, maybe later on in university, maybe, I think there was like one exception. But that's a big no. That's just, the rules, I think the basic rules were, if we don't know their parents, if they haven't come over, if we don't know who they are, it's a no. Don't even ask about it. It's just, don't even ask. And obviously at that time, now I joke about it and now I understand. But at that time, it's very frustrating. I was really mad. I was really sad, really angry. And really, really angry. Like as a teenager, having that anger, I would rebel because I thought, like, why do my parents do this? Like, why do they not want to understand me? So prom was also another issue. And I think coming also from a different generation, I think in Egypt prom, I think Yasmin can confirm, but I think it's, it's normal, right? Like it's
not that normal.
Okay. Okay, so I don't know. But my parents, for them, prom, like, oh, what does it mean to go to a party organized by the school? Like what's, and you have to buy a fancy dress for it? Like, what does that mean? And I think what helped me a lot is that my mom was also a teacher. My mom did her Bachelor of Education and she worked in school. So my mom was able to kind of convince my dad and tell him, like, I've seen what happens. I've seen who goes, like, it's okay. It's actually organized by the school. Everything is good. So that helped me a lot in that sense. But
I'm sorry to cut you off here. It's a follow-up question. Please carry on. But it's just like, how did you justify this difference to your classmates when they always ask you, hey, like, Orhan, you're always missing out. Like, you never come to proms, you never come out to these outings. We missed you at the birthday party. How did you justify this difference to them?
Honestly, at first it was hard, but also like I said, I come from a very diverse community and my closer friends were people with similar values. So there was, a lot of them were also second generation immigrants. So some of them had their parents who were okay with it, go do your thing with some restrictions. And some of them were dealing with the same issues as me. So I wasn't really the only one. And I understood that later on when, you know, we started talking about it. But at first, I felt like I was the odd one out. Later on, I want to say like grade maybe 10, 9, 10. Then when we saw art, oh, okay, so we have the same struggles. Okay, so also your parents don't let you do this. Okay, you want to be my friend? We'll all hang out at school.
Were you ever bullied or like looked down upon or marginalized because you didn't participate in these things?
Oh, yeah, I was not one of the cool ones. I was not, you know, and I wasn't, because, you know, they were at every gathering, they were at each other's houses. After school, they were able to go do this right away. But I was just part of my small little group, but I knew I wasn't part of the cool ones. And at first it was really hard, but eventually I just accepted it. And I knew that, you know, I have my little crew, we have similar struggles, and it is what it is.
Well, thank you very much, Nurhan. And now it's time for Yasmin to take the same journey with us here.
Whoa.
So, again, like tell us about it, like, you know, growing up, and your relationship with, you know, what you might have seen right or interesting, or growing up in like sort of a like semi-international school, or again, maybe watching a lot of Western, you know, TV series and you know, movies and stuff. How did you compare your your life to what you saw? Were you rebellious at any time with your parents? Tell us about it.
Okay. Speaking about how dealing with males and so on, even in university, my parents were raised in mixed schools, so that they had the same, like they didn't have a problem dealing with them. But as long as I'm putting limits as well and with some rules, it's not that open, but they weren't that worried. But for example, dealing, like all of us at school, we were like, for example, going as girls only, so we had the same culture, they had the same value in the same houses, because we're in a close community inside the school, similar. So I didn't have that problem. Only when I used to travel abroad with my parents, I used to ask a lot. Why are they doing that? Why it's strange from my values? Like I kept asking, so they kept explaining that we have different cultures and not all of the people are like other.
Excuse my intrusion here,
No, it's
and
okay.
my extra curiosity. What things did you ask about? What things caught your attention when you were abroad? What exactly, if you don't mind sharing?
For example, girls, they can go out at night and they come back fine, like it's okay, because it's not okay in our culture. For example, having parties, open parties as mixed genders, I don't see much. I didn't see it much when I was a kid. Now it's more. Our community is more open in Egypt now, and I can't remember more. But even the way of dressing, because also people were looking at me for wearing the hijab, and so why are they looking at me? Why they are not accepting me? Why sometimes I can get I'm being attacked by some words, or, you know, people sometimes are being tough, or they have a lot of curiosity to know what I'm wearing. So why I'm not known, or why people are not having enough knowledge about my culture, and I have more knowledge about them. Because my parents used to let me read more about the country that I'm going to, and so I can accept and know what are the restrictions of the other country and to respect these values of them. But the other way wasn't there enough. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very important aspect here. And how did you receive that? Like, of course, you know, because as children, um, nobody as a child talks about like first world, second world, third world countries, developing countries. They don't know these terms like, you know, the G7 and so on and so forth. But as people start to grow up, they start to realize these differences. How did you receive it, Yasmin? Like when you started realizing, oh, actually, the world is not all the same. There is a different world. There's different like categories and of countries and so on. How did you feel about it?
Sometimes I felt that I want to take the good things that they are in other countries and I see them in my country, and why we're not having an ideal one, you know, like because for example, we have a problem with traffic, for example, in Egypt. In other countries, when I go, I find it's more organized, it's more clean streets and so on. So if I look now and like 10 years ago, no, now it's better, but why it wasn't there at that time? And things like that, accepting others, maybe. Sometimes here as a kind of the part of the culture is people interfere too much in the, like there's no much privacy. That's a part of the culture and trying sometimes to avoid it. But what I like about some other cultures, they really accept the privacy. So it's not that interfering in your life. So, you know, like you want to take the good things and get away the bad things. So our culture would be better and I would feel more comfortable. So this is how I started to perceive things.
But were you ever rebellious about it with your parents? Like, why are we living here? Why don't we go and move, live in a better country, or like go to a better culture?
Maybe when I was a kid, I was having the excitement for to go there. Why would we live there? We're having better things there and so on. But when I started going, I wanted to develop my own country so I can feel more, I had more sense of belonging. But I had other conflicts with my parents, such as they're more restricted to me because I'm a girl, my brother is a boy, he can go out at night, I can't go. So I felt that that's not fair. Like if he's not going at night, if I'm not going at night, he won't go at night. So the curfew should be the same. That's how it should feel fair. So, but because of the culture that it's not appropriate that the girl would go at night or after a certain curfew, so I had to get restricted even if I have many conflicts and so on.
Now, thank you very much, Yasmin. And just going a little bit back to the school years, I want to ask about two things. How did you perceive school? Like, what was as a student first, we'll ask later on about you now as a teacher, but as a student at the time, what did you think that the ultimate goal of education in Canada was? Like, how much homework did you get? Like, how much, you know, just spoon feeding did you get? How much character building did you get? And did you work during school years?
So when we first arrived, I was coming from a different system. And I arrived here and I honestly found it wasn't challenging for me. I was more advanced than the rest of the class because I came from a different system. So the first I came in the middle of the year around March. So the last 3 months, what we were doing, I had taken it the year before or, previously. So to me, it wasn't challenging. I didn't understand. I was telling my mom, like what is this? Like why is it so easy here? And at first my mom did not know the system either, actually. And we were doing, so I was actually homeschooled at the same time. So I was going to school and I was doing a different French program at home where I'm not sure what the term would be in English. So I would do my homework or do my work and send it to France. They correct it, they send it back, and so I'm not sure what the term is in English, but in French it's correspondance. So you would send your work and get it corrected.
It's correspondence. It is correspondence.
Okay, perfect. So my mom really wanted us to stay in that system for a little bit, just so we kind of maintain our level that was so high or whatever. So that was our first, I think we stayed in that system for maybe 2.5 years. My mom was really keen on maintaining that. And then after you just kind of, you catch up to the level, or you kind of, you blend in. You're not gonna, and I get that question a lot from parents too. Like when they arrive, oh, the system, my kids are much more advanced. You end up catching up, or like staying within the same range. So I did have a lot of work to do because I was doing something else at home. I was doing another program at home. And I remember, like, back home, when I compare, or not back home, I was raised in Saudi Arabia. When I compare, we had a lot of homework every day. And then I come here and it's for the week, you do it when you can. We had time in school to do it if we needed to. So all those little things that were a shock for me at first, now obviously I understand them, but these were the differences. And I think for me, grade 11 was the hardest. Grade 11 is where I felt like, whoa, there is a lot of work. There's a lot of pressure. And then there's the pressure of grade 12 to get into university or college. Everybody's rushing to finish their applications, to get those grades up. Yeah, it was interesting to see that difference growing up.
Definitely. And again, like character building, like how much of a role do you think the school played in building your character? Because a lot of people have this, like a lot of new immigrants, they say, education is so weak. Like kids they don't have any homework. They just play. And we ask them, what did you do today in school? They played. But like there is a secret like that they don't understand. But from this very loose and out of bounds system comes a very developed country. How? Like what is the secret? Or like, so how about character building? How much did the school help you build your character?
If I look back, and I'm not talking as a teacher, I'm talking as a student, there was a lot of emphasis on teamwork. You had to learn to work with other people. We had a lot of conflicts. Well, you got to learn to deal with the conflicts. So you got to, kind of find a middle ground. So definitely you learn to work with other people. The teams get mixed up all the time. And there was also a lot of activities. We had to, the school encourages everybody to be involved in doing something for the school. So we would do like bake sales to raise funds for whatever. So all these activities get you involved in the school. They make you like going to school. You enjoy going to school. And it's not just led by the adults, you're also with the other students. And all these social things are so important. They made me, first of all, I learned how to speak English. So that was an important aspect. I became, I spoke English and French fluently. So all these things are very, very important for my development, for me to be able to continue and go to university and continue my studies for sure, these school plays a very, very important role. And I spent all my days, for most of my days at school. So these were very, very important.
And again, did you work during school years?
Yes, that was actually one of that was one of our conflicts with my parents, because arriving grade 11, most of my friends were talking about, you know, their work during the weekend or after school. They were doing this, babysitting, telemarketing, or whatever. People did different things. So I went to my parents one day and I told them that I wanted to work too. And and I remember my parents' reaction. They were like, you know, like, are we not providing for you? Like, why do you need to work? And I think coming from that background, it's almost shameful for somebody so young to work. You know, you only work if you need money. But here, there's that culture of you build your experience. You do volunteering. Actually, when we're in high school, you have to complete a certain amount of hours to be able to graduate. You can't graduate without having done those volunteering hours. So there's a lot of emphasis on experience, on, you know, doing something in the community, doing something for other people. So I wanted to work. I wanted to have that independence. And I think part of me wanted that independence. And I felt like working would give me, you know, just a little peek at that independence that I felt like was missing. And it was back and forth with my parents for a very long time, until they told me, okay, you can work, but then they put some restrictions on, you know, the hours, how I'm getting there, where, so not like I think they said it's okay as long as it was in an office, something like that. So yes, I ended up working in grade 11 because I wanted to, and I had to kind of beg my parents.
And people in the school, like teachers and your classmates, how did they react to you working?
It was normal. It wasn't like it's part of you know, some people do it because they need to, for sure. But it was common. You know, maybe I want to say most of us did something on the side, either working on the weekends or after school. It's very encouraged in this culture, because, you know, you learn since a very young age to not, you know, depend on your parents. Where I feel like from our culture, no, you depend on your parents. And my parents always told me this, you know, we take care of you until you get out of the house, until you are married. This is how it is. So it was really hard. Like, and I rebelled in that sense where, no, I want to work. I want to do that. Let me that. And I'll even, you know, my at first, I did not even take the public transportation. My mom or my dad would drop me off to work, and then they would pick me up, until later they're like, oh, okay, it's not so bad. She can actually do it. And I would take the public transportation. But other than that, for the longest time, my parents would drop me off and pick me up. And I think I was the only one. We were all young people working in that office, and I was the only one being picked up. But it was part of the deal that I had to make with my parents.
And I think it played a very big role in, you know, setting a schedule for yourself. Like, yes. I think when you work, because you're studying, you need to study and work at the same time. So you need to be very organized, have a very fixed schedule, timetable. You have a specific time slot when I'm supposed to do this, no more and no less.
Yeah.
And I think the value of money as well, and the value of work. You're taught this very early on as a child.
Yeah, sorry. And that's very, very important, the value of money, because before that, honestly, it was just my parents' money. Oh, okay, I want that, I'm just gonna ask my parents. Oh, I want that again, and that I would just ask my parents. And it's you know, my parent, I would if they said no for something, I wouldn't understand. But when you work and you have your own money, and then you start spending it on certain things, you understand the value of money. You understand that a credit card is not just, or a debit, it's not just limitless. You know, you have a certain amount on there. It's not every time you swipe it, it's gonna refill itself.
Definitely.
So all those things were very, very important in
it taught a lot of responsibility,
Yeah.
and again, was school like the space for creativity, of thinking out of the box,
Oh yeah.
thinking out of, like, you know, the flock. Was there space for that?
Oh yeah, there was tons of space for that, especially in high school. Now, honestly, I'm focused more on high school just because my first years were such a struggle. But later on, you know, high school is it's a lot of fun. You are involved in all these social projects, these cultural projects. You know, we had a concert at school. So all these things are so much fun because you are with your friends within I want to say like a structured kind of environment. So my parents were not worried because it's a safe environment. There are teachers, there are adults. So I could have fun, you know, while following all the rules and restrictions. All the, you know, and then grade 11 and 12, I remember all the discussions, the open discussions we would have in class about different things that, you know, sometimes there are things that in our culture we cannot talk about. It's not just taboo, it's just, you know, people don't talk about it. So in class, sometimes I took a philosophy class in high school. So it was, you know, you talk about all these things and it makes you think about your culture and about the culture that you're living in and how you could merge them or how you can pick and choose from both. So all these things were definitely a space where I was able to develop, you know, and think outside the box and view the world different from just my little, you know, shelter. Or
Absolutely, absolutely. And Yasmin, same question. Like, school, education, the ultimate goal of school, like homeworks, responsibility, character building. How much of this did you have in school?
Okay, regarding the homework, actually we had a very strict homework system, and it was a lot of stress to me because it was more theoretical, not like by practical, like as being a performance task or a project. We didn't have that at that time. So it was boring for me a little bit, and it was tough at some times. But I learned more when I entered IGCSE in the high school. It was more fun because it's not about only, you know, like reciting, or I'm using my mind. So it was learning more skills, and, you know, like my mind is scaffolding a little bit. About regarding building my character, the school helped in building my character, mainly in sports and after school activities. It helped in my social and communication skills, and also as getting exposed to different situations at school. Regarding the work during school, actually, it was something that I was unique in. Based on our culture, it's not that famous, or it's not that known that we can work at an early age during school years. But actually, since grade 8, I started to work in each summer. Because my parents encouraged me. We were always traveling a lot. They were exposed to other cultures, so they wanted to encourage this thing in me, you know, taking this part from other cultures so it can enhance my skills. And when I was so excited and feeling unique, showing off to my friends that, you know what, guys, I've been working in the summer in maybe a travel company, or I'm doing community service, or maybe I'm working in a nursery. So they used to act as if I'm a weirdo in front of them. So what is she doing? Why she's not spending her summer on the beach? I used to do this as well, but when I'm really, my parents encouraged me in that. It really, I really had more experience than my friends. I felt that I'm older by experience. I felt more independent, and it helped in building my character much. So
that was like sort of an enigma, an anomaly. Like it was something out of the norm for you. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
especially this is not known much in our country, or I mean in our culture.
And now we finished school and now moving to university. How did university look like, or like choosing a university? So, and my question again is to Norhan first. So, does the culture here in Canada view specific specialties and specific disciplines as the elite and the respectable ones, and if you can't get into these disciplines, then you're lost, like you're second class? Or was it different? Like going from high school to university, how was this stage for you, you know, with your parents and with other people around you in Canada? How was this period like, this transitional period?
Socially here, there is not really, I didn't feel like there was a pressure on, you know, certain like specialties that you needed to get in. I think there was more of talks about the top universities and the universities that, you know, where the highest rates of employment or all those things. But the specialties, I didn't feel that pressure from the society here. But obviously I felt it from my parents. So when I was applying, I actually applied to, I told my parents I did not want anything that had to do with math. I struggled the last 2 years of university with math. I just did not want to, have high school, sorry, with math. And I did not want anything that had to do with math because I felt like it was not for me. Now this has changed, but at that time. So we explored the different options, and obviously my parents would spend hours reading on what would be the best thing. I ended up applying to a psychology program, and I think here there's a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Arts. It was a Bachelor of Arts, not even a science one. So to my parents, it was still kind of useless, but they let me kind of do what I wanted. And I went to a bilingual university because I really wanted to do something bilingual. My parents they accepted it, but they felt like I could do so much better. Once in, so before I start the program, my parents met somebody whose son went into political science and he advanced and he did this. And then they convinced me to change to political science. So before I started psychology, I went into political science, and I hated it. I hated political science. And finally, and this is where the rebel in me came back. I had taken a gender and women's studies class, and I told my parents that I wanted to do a bachelor in women's studies. So this meant this meant nothing for my parents. What do you mean, women's studies? Like, what are you learning? So it was honestly, it was a battle. I knew that this is what I wanted. My heart was set on it. I was convinced that this was the best for me, and I had the best grades in that class that I took. That I tried by accident, but I loved it. Finally, they accepted, but it was a struggle. it was a struggle. And I think for the longest time, my parents did not tell anybody I was in women's studies. They would just tell them I stayed in political science because, you know, what are you going to do with women's studies? But I loved it. And it was honestly, and I still think it's the best decision I have taken for myself. I loved it so much. And obviously back home, and people were asking, what does that mean? What do you do? What do you learn? And I have to explain, it's like a mix of psychology, sociology, but focused on women's issues in Canada and in the world. I still get weird looks about it, but it was the best thing for me.
It's a waste of time, like you're just wasting your time.
Yes, it's exactly that. But here, like, you have so many options when you get into university. You have different specialties. You have, you know, so tons and tons of options.
And how did people like who grew up here in Canada look at you when you told them that you're studying, like you're doing women's studies?
Oh, that's so cool. that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a very, I think it's a little bit more common now, but at that time it was, it wasn't that common. So a lot of people were like, oh, that's so cool. So what are you thinking of doing with it? And I'm like, you could go to law school. You could do so many things with it, just like any bachelor, right? Like just the 4 years, you have to go more to do something about it. And to kind of, ease my parents' shock, I did a certificate in migration and refugee studies at the same time. So kind of, to tell them if I do decide to do something, I could, go in that.
You wanted to sort of appease or pacify your parents. So, okay, I'm doing this for you.
Yeah, and I loved it. I loved that doing that certificate at the same time. I did not stay longer in university or anything. So, but it's just, honestly, that part was a shock for my parents at first. Gender and women's studies? What? What does that even mean? And eventually I went to, and did my Bachelor of Education. And I did it in a city that's 5 hours away. So I lived on my own. That's another issue. I had to tell them that I'm leaving home. But yeah.
that's a different thing, of course. So living on your own is a different story. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Yasmin, moving from school to university, choosing what to study, like how easy, how smooth will that shift? How much freedom did you have to choose your discipline? Were there like sort of some disciplines or some, schools that were like more prestigious than others? So Nurhan said it's not the discipline, it's just the university. So whatever I'm studying in university A would be good. Doesn't matter. Was it the same in Egypt or was it quite different?
Okay, actually, no, it really differs. The name of the university is the prestigious way of thinking which university you're entering. It doesn't matter which bachelor you are entering or which faculty you're going to study. It differs in which university. But actually, I thank God that my parents are not that type also, and that's out of the norm, actually. So it wasn't a pressure even to, like, because a part of the Egyptian culture, you have to be, and in order to feel more prestigious, you have to become as an engineer or either a pharmacist or a doctor. That's it. But actually, I wasn't pressured. Like, if I was pressured sometimes from the community or people around me, I didn't care. And my parents actually, I thank God that they were supporting me in this thing. So I wanted to enter the Faculty of Medicine only because I like medicine, but when I didn't have the opportunity, I just entered business. And I said to myself, I'm going to finish university and then I will see what I'm gonna work as my passion. But still, people started telling me, oh my God, you only entered business, and in which university? No, it's not that good. It's not that prestigious. When you're gonna go to companies, they're not gonna accept you because the name of the university is not that famous and it's not that luxurious, you know. So I told them, fine, it's gonna be by me, my how my work, how much experience do I have, and so on. And then even after I was gonna start working as an accountant, my father a little bit pressured me, but because he wanted to, he is a financial consultant, he has his own company, so he wanted me to work with him, and so I couldn't bear the work and I wasn't feeling interested. So I kept debating a little bit, but it wasn't a fight. But at the end, I decided to go my own way and I shifted my career within like 2 months only. And I decided to go to the education system as a teacher. And when they found that I was unique and finally I found my passion, although again, the community was pressuring me. You're gonna work as a teacher after all of these years of studying, and you entered the British system and you took a British certificate. Yeah, guys, it's not a problem as long as I love my job and I love what I'm doing to the community. And my parents also encouraged me when I told them that I want to take my master's in international education. So they really motivated me through that. And that was it. But it's a problem in our culture about that.
So all the way, you were out of the norm, really. And just a little, you know, it might sound trivial, but actually it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. We're talking about, like, Nurhan, you went to a public school in Canada, not a private one. Mm-hmm. And Yasmin, who might in several of her answers sound out of the norm, because Yasmin was not in a public school. So, which is how, like, in your opinion, Yasmin, like, how different do you think your life would have been if you were in a public system?
Honestly, it was gonna be worse. Although I have been exposed to some public students, like students who study in public schools. They really struggle with poor education system a little bit. Now it is a little bit more enhanced and more improved. But at my time, no, I was gonna struggle that much. Yeah. And
like, for example, what is the teacher-student ratio? So, like, how many students would you have in class in a public school at your
For
time?
example, yeah, in my school, because I was semi-international, we were 30. In public schools, it's from 40 to 60 in one class. So it's a lot of pressure on the teacher and on the students. And so, of course, there will not be any kind of communication or kind of teaching. So that's a big problem. Until they reach high school and then they enter the university, they will still need more skills to be developed and more concepts and academics and everything. They will have a lack of it.
And how about in, like, this question is for both of you, please. So Nurhan first, like, what was the number of students in university, like in a class or a lecture? How many people sat for it?
So in my case, I went to a campus that's part of a big university. So it's the French campus, again, a smaller community like my school. So if you compare it to the Anglophone campus or the Anglophone school, it's a much smaller. So in our so the average in our classes were maybe a little bit less than 50 in university. in the university class. But when I went to the main campus, we can go up to 200. So I had that privilege and of being in a smaller university, and obviously that helped me a lot in different ways. But yeah, it could go a bit bigger.
So how about in a public university in Egypt, for example? Like how much? Now, of course, there is a difference here because in Egypt you can go, you have free university education, public free university education, which is not the case in Canada. There is a huge amount of assistance that the government gives to students. So the Canadian government would give you a lot of support, a lot of like a big loan that you can pay off later on at a very extended period. But generally speaking, it's not for free. In Egypt, on the other hand, theoretically, on paper, you have public free universities. But how big would people be in like the Faculty of Commerce, for example? Yasmin, do you know like how big?
It's not less than 100. Not less than 100. But I was in a private university. We were from 30 to 35 maximum.
But let me repose. I don't want to answer on your behalf, but are you sure that in the public university in Egypt, Faculty of Commerce, the class would be only 100 people? I don't like as far as I know, it can be like almost 1,000 really. Yeah, like in faculties of commerce, law school, and again, of course, the law, getting into law here in Canada, for instance, is a big dream for many people, and it's such a big, you need to go through many stages, and you need to be like a straight A student. On the other hand, in Egypt, School of Law is exactly the opposite. And so the poor guys who did not get a chance to go to any good discipline, people with lower grades, they just go to, like they call it the parking lot, really. And they would spend their years there. And so it's such a big thing.
Yeah, law school here is actually, it was actually one of my dreams, and it was impossible to reach because I remember some of the requirements were actually, some part of it is doing some community work, working in a law office, and really high grades and all those things. There is a lot of requirements to get in. And not only that, but it's, like you mentioned, it's not free here. So it's very expensive because it's also a postgrad. So you do have to do your 3 or 4 years before, and then you can consider law school. So when it builds up, you're doing maybe 10 years of school, and with maybe 10K a year or even more, depending on where you're going.
Absolutely.
I'm amazed, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't know this info before.
Yeah.
Yeah, like going to law school is such a prestigious thing and such a great thing, but it's a very long path, because remember, like graduates of law school are the people who can make a difference between you spending your life in jail and you being set free. So you need to get the smartest people to do it, not the weakest. Like this is the logic here, really, between, like, the difference between this and that. And university, like, what did you take in university? Again, like, Nurhan, was it spoon feeding? Was it like theoretical versus practical? What did you take with you, like, now that you're a teacher and you did your bachelor's of education? how much did you benefit from
Um, so I think what was a shock at first is we go from an hour and 15 minutes of class in high school, and then you end up in this class of 3 hours. So that was a shock for all of us. And I think the first year of university, actually, a lot of people drop out because you are not ready for that. There is a huge gap. You go from kind of being babied in high school, you know, the teachers run after you if you were late for an assignment. And then you go from, you know, you're late, too bad. You already paid for that class. Like, just deal with it. And it was really, really hard. It kind of, you really have to build resilience. You have to just be organized, and it's hard. You go, and sometimes you would have days where you had, you know, 3 classes. So that means 9 hours of sitting and listening to somebody. The system is completely different, where we went from a lot of hands-on, and then it's a lot of theory. You're sitting, you're listening, taking notes on your computer or taking notes by hand, whatever. So there is, you know, a lot of parents and a lot of people, when we talk about this, there is a gap in the system when it comes to this, because the education system up until grade 12, we focus a lot on, you know, just making the activities more diverse. And then you go into university and it's a lot of paper and reading. You have tons and tons of reading. You're really not ready for this. So it's a struggle. It's really, really a struggle. And it teaches you to be, you know, very independent, very organized. You know, you kind of, a lot of people, you know, gain a lot of weight during university years and all those things. It's hard. It's hard, but they were probably my best years, because you are free. I spent most of my day on campus. I would also hang out with some friends. I would also do homework. You still had that kind of, I still had that kind of freedom. But it was a struggle. And time management, you learn time management. You learn all those skills that would probably make you a better person to work later, that you don't see, or how important they are in high school. You kind of have to learn them on your own in university.
So they really build you well for the job market, you think? Like, you were well prepared and well suited for the job market in university?
In a sense, I think what was lacking, when I compare, I have friends who went to college, which is very different here. University and college, it's 2 different systems, and different programs. You don't even have the same programs, and you could find similar programs, but it's different programs. University is really focused on theory. This is how it is. You listen to the prof for those 3 hours. You might have a group work. You might have an assignment to hand in, and then probably an exam, 3-hour-long exam. When I talked to my friends who went to college, they had the chance to do a co-op. So they would work in a company where they would try out different things and maybe be hired by that company after.
And college is a respectable thing in Canada.
Yes, yeah, it's just the same, you know, you pick either or, whatever works for you better. So in college, you have that chance to do a lot more hands-on. You learn skills. I have friends who did college first because they felt that this is a better transition to go into university. So they finish high school, then they go to college, then they go to university, because, you know, you hear all those things about university, and it's true. University is hard. There is something missing in the system in the middle.
Yeah, but college is like the more practical, and it's very respectable.
Yeah.
Now, Yasmin, like, how comfortable would somebody be going to a college, or like the name they would give it in Egypt, it would be an institute, like more than a college, but like would you agree that it was okay, like for you to go to a college in Egypt or like institute instead of going to university?
Well, it's here like depending on the culture, it's divided by the class of the people. So if you are in class A, you're going to enter university. If you have enough money, you're going to enter university. Lower classes will enter colleges or institutes and so on. Actually, this is how it's working here.
So it's not prestigious to go to a college, or like people would not, it wouldn't be as respectable as university, you would say.
Unfortunately, I don't know why this is now. This is how it goes now. That it's more prestigious to go to university. It's a shame for some people to go to an institute. Although we need those people in our community, those who are gonna have, you know, like mechanics and, you know, some of these practical faculties. But at the end, I don't know why this is how it goes now. This is the trend, actually. And it's a big problem in our community because now, you know, like a plumber, a carpenter, those skills are not that, you can't find them anymore. They are very few and we really need them. So it's a very big problem in our culture now.
And okay, I know, like it's super late in Egypt now for Yasmin, and I know, like she's. Please hang on with us. I know.
I'm trying. I'm good.
Yeah, good. Like, and I'm trying to sort of cram as many, you know, pieces of information in one question. Now, moving to, like, I would say, we're almost there. Yasmin, we're almost.
It's okay.
Like,
I just wanted to say something about the gap that Nurhan was talking about. Actually, in Egypt, we don't have this gap between the high school system and university, because starting from the high school, we're starting to get more notes. Even those who I was taking IGCSE, which is like the British high school certificate, but my friends who were public, they were taking the public high school certificate or even the American one. They also were getting used to notes and more lectures or sessions. So when we entered, all of us, all of the mixed kind of holders to university, we didn't have this gap. Actually, those who struggled, even if they are entering a public university or an American one, for an American system, those who were struggling, the American holders, as the American system itself. But those were with the public and the British, they were getting more into their curriculum. They weren't struggling that much. They didn't feel that hard. That's it.
And again, like, I'll try to be as very brief as possible about just a very quick question about work. Norhan, like, same question I asked you before about universities. Like, how is work seen here? Like, are there like more prestigious, less prestigious kinds of work? Like,
so when we talk about the society here or in general,
yeah,
there isn't, you know, it's people, or the culture here is, you know, like, as long as you work, as long as you're doing something with your life, as long as you are making money to be able to maintain, you know, a certain life, you're good. It doesn't matter if you are a doctor, a teacher, it doesn't matter. But obviously I come from a family that is, kind of still has those values. So it's important to do some of these things to succeed, to be considered successful by society. And I found that, in our culture, and I say our culture because I grew up in that environment. We were always surrounded by Egyptian families and Egyptian, everybody was, around us. There was always Arabs and Egyptians. We always care about what people are going to think, but what people are going to say about our families if we didn't do this, or if our kids were not raised that way. So it's very, very important to certain families that to maintain a certain, to do something specific with your life.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Yasmin, the same question. Like first class, second class jobs?
Yeah, it's based on first class and second class jobs. Unfortunately, it's better to become a doctor or an engineer or a pharmacist or a businessman. But if you are working as a teacher, for example, that's not that prestigious. Or if you are working as any other thing that it's not that famous to people or not that prestigious in the community. And but I really like my family, for example, at home, I out of the norm, they don't care as long as I'm feeling like I am unique at my job, and I'm really.
But again, your family is always out of the norm.
Like, yeah.
You consider to be one of the
actually, we're getting pressure from the community. Sorry.
You're saying you're getting pressure from the community.
Yeah. Why are you working as a teacher? You're not gonna get paid as much as your effort. You're gonna struggle with kids. They will not. Whenever you're gonna teach them more, they're not gonna learn enough. Like, why the disappointment? As long as I'm feeling that I'm giving something important to the community and I'm really supporting my community, so I'm good with that. So, but other people, they get pressured and they really change their job. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of a stress.
Okay, this is the last question before the recap. So you can do it now.
It's okay.
Romance, love, getting closer to someone. Nurhan first, like the limitations, or like getting like your soulmate, your love, your partner, the frequency of these relationships again, and the extent of how far these relationships can go, and the characteristics of your partner in terms of character, in terms of job as well. How are all these things seen in the popular Canadian culture, first by yourself as well, versus what your parents thought about it?
Well, obviously in the Canadian culture, it's, there's, it's okay. You could have a boyfriend, you could, go out, get to know that person. And it depends obviously on the families, right? Like, I'm speaking in general, but the boundaries are not as restricted as our culture. I remember when I first arrived, it was in grade 6, and we already had a couple. There was a boyfriend and a girlfriend in grade 6, and it was, to me, it was a little bit odd. like, how do their parents know? Like, what are they doing? Is this okay? And, like it was, just weird for me because I knew this was not okay. You see those things in movies and that's it. Like it's not us. It's just in the movies. But it's also not things we talked about at home openly. Just because, like, I feel like my parents just assumed we knew these are our boundaries and, we're just going to respect them. We don't need to talk about them. That's also another problem with or just a little issue with our culture, is that there are certain things that we just don't talk about, and it's understood that we are all on the same page, and it's just better that we don't talk about it. It's let's just keep it that way. So it's, so we would not talk about it, and if there was somebody, I would not tell my parents because, like, it's just you don't talk about it. And my parents' expectation were always, you marry somebody who is from the same culture, from the same religion, because it's important that we maintain our values and our culture. I ended up marrying somebody who's Algerian, so it's very similar, but it's my parents at first were, they had a lot of questions. It's not, they were just wondering, like, is this similar enough? If there's differences, can you guys overcome them? But it was, it was a lot of discussion, and yeah, so we're here today.
And how about like the job of your husband? Like, what if you fell in love? And again, excuse me, I'm not being any, but I'm a person who's aware of the difference between the two cultures. So it's a dual question at the same time. Would it be okay for you to marry someone who worked as a chef, for example, in a restaurant, somebody who worked as a plumber, as an electrician, as a mechanic? Again, in Canadian culture, then according to your parents?
No, in Canadian culture, you marry whoever you want. You just, as long as you're both happy, as long as you both want this, then you go.
And it wouldn't look odd. And like, so like if you're a lawyer.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, like in front of Canadian society, if you're a lawyer and your husband is a mechanic.
There is no issue with that in the Canadian culture. But again, I grew up really like in the Egyptian values and surrounded by immigrants who had very, very similar values. So there was that expectation. So, somebody who had a certain standard, who could provide a certain way, because in our culture, the man is the provider. He has to be able to provide for the home. So if he doesn't do certain jobs, that means he will not be able to provide. So you have to be able to find somebody who will keep you in our standards, who will give you that lifestyle that we gave you so you are comfortable. So my parents always told me that.
Thank you very much, Nurhan. And Yasmin, same question, the romantic part, the love part.
Well, regarding my parents choosing the partner, also nearly the same like Nurhan, because this is our culture, that this person has to have the same religion, at least close to our social standard, and out of the norm, that my parents don't care about the financial standard that much. Like, at least if there will be a little bit of a gap, it's fine, but this is out of the norm also. But but according to the Egyptian culture, no, it has to be either the same or higher, financially and socially, because unfortunately,
so the man must have the higher end than the woman.
Yeah, because the man psychologically will not feel, if he felt less, it would bring the opposite side, and there will be some consequences. And but actually, related to going out and knowing the person, no, my parents were not free. They were not that stricted like others, but they were like due to the culture as well. I have to have a curfew, and they have to know his parents. They have to know more information. Who's the guy that you are gonna meet? What is he working? How his parents raised him, and also due to some religious reasons and cultural rules. So they were like they have to direct me a little bit. It's not that free. And
How about the job of your like husband? Would it be okay if you get married to a plumber, for example, if you fell in love with him?
No, according to the social standard and financial. So it's not gonna be okay in our country, or even, I mean, not country, in our culture especially.
So no matter how much you love that plumber, for example, or like mechanic or electrician, it's
No, it will
out
be
of
strict.
question.
It won't be accepted at all.
So there's no way around it. Like there's no way around it. Like it's a big no. It's a big no. It's like really, yeah.
And I feel it's something we saw in movies, like Egyptian movies, where you have that like really rich girl who falls in love with the poor
fairy tale.
Yeah, it's like a fairy tale, but like knowing from my parents surrounding, and when I go to Egypt and I visit, and I know this is not even an option. This is just something you see in movies. Like, don't even think about it.
Absolutely. Very last thing, what would you trade? Like if there was an opportunity of trading places or trading cultures, either fully or partially, like what parts would you like to see in your Canadian culture and your Egyptian culture? What parts do you like in the other culture you'd like to import to your own cultures? Starting with Nurhan.
So if I were to take something from the Canadian culture to have in the Egyptian culture is openness. Like I feel like we miss, in our culture, we miss that openness to be able to speak about issues and yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want you to tell me both, please. And again, what would you like to take from the Egyptian culture to the Canadian one as well?
Yeah, so if I were from the Canadian one, I would take the openness. Like in Canada, we talk a lot about, mental illness, diversity, all these things. And we talk about, and like as a teacher, you talk about being inclusive, accepting people for who they are physically, mentally, racially. All these things are okay, and we talk about them, and it's important to be fair and to be equal. And I feel like that misses in the Egyptian culture sometimes. There are inequalities, but you just don't talk about them because it's just how society was built. You don't touch those things. You just move on with your life. It is what it is. If I were to take from the Egyptian culture, we have the sense of family that is very, very important. And I'm not just talking about, like mom, dad, grandparents, and cousins. No, when I go to Egypt, I see like all the like extended second, third cousins and all those people. They're so important to us. And we are always, it's just every gathering, everybody has to be there. It's just that warmth of family. Everybody, all those people, I know Yasmin mentioned at one point, that like people are up in your space a lot. It's part of it, but I think that's something I miss a lot here. We don't have family here. Our family friends became our family because we just don't have anybody else here. Everybody else is in Egypt. So I love that aspect of our culture, just family, and it's not just your close circle. Our circle is so big. You're always, or at least when I go, because I live outside, I'm always discovering that like distant relative or whatever, and then we end up adding each other on Facebook after meeting one time, and it's just we chat every now and then, and it's just how it is. Family is so important to us, and I love that.
Thank you very much, Nurhan. And Yasmin, like, what would you like to trade?
Well, I would like to take from the Canadian culture the sense of privacy a little bit. And an applied system, in like having a system in everything, being organized a little bit with strict rules. And this is what I have in my mind, because also some of the other points that I wanted to say, I totally agree with what Nurhan said.
And you also, like Nurhan, goes to Egypt. You visited Canada as well, Yasmin, right?
Yeah. The hospitality, also the sense of accepting others. It was really important. Not being judgmental. This is what I want to take so much from Canadians' culture. And what I want to take from the Egyptian culture is the same as Nurhan said, the sense of family warmth and sense of belonging, and some traditions and pure traditions and culture. You really feel that you belong to this country. And the food as well.
Yes. That's another thing I was gonna add.
And the sense of humor in Egyptians, that it really decreased the daily life stress that we're living. We're always being sarcastic at everything that we're doing and laughing whenever we're crying. This is something that I find it really few in other cultures. So we are unique in this, actually. And the hospitality. People are very friendly. Whenever someone has a problem, they try to help him as much as they can. So this is what I have in my mind, actually.
And to add, I think in our Egyptian culture, we have a really strong sense of community. Like, if somebody is in need of money or somebody is sick, we really have that strong sense of, let's go help that person. People drop everything to go help somebody from the community, to be there for people. I find that I love it. And even here, like as, Egyptians, we are always supporting each other. So my doctor is Egyptian, my pharmacist is Egyptian, my hairdresser is Egyptian. It's just we love helping each other in that way, and I love that. I love that in our community.
Adding the last point, I want to take from Canadian culture the open-mindedness. Sometimes the too much restrictions in our culture, it can narrow the mind a little bit. So we don't have that broad view to the world. So we need it more in our culture, so it can enhance it and improve it more. So that's it.
Really, I really can't thank you enough, both of you, for being with us tonight. It's great, really hearing from both of you. It was a real pleasure having both of you. And Yasmin, I know, like you, you might be.
It's my honor. It's really my honor.
Thank you very much, but sorry to keep you late, and relatively again, Nurhan as well. So really, I really have the pleasure of having you both, and I'm sure our most honorable viewers have enjoyed that as well. And dear viewers, if we were just to recap and conclude here, societies around the world are basically divided into, let's say, two kinds of societies. So we have the there are some societies that are sociocentric and others are egocentric. So some societies, like the individual would sacrifice everything for the group. While in egocentric society, no, the individual, him or herself, have a value. And again, there are some societies that are very ethnocentric. So the right thing is what we do. Whatever others do is wrong. And other societies believe in cultural relativism. So everything is relative. Nothing is absolutely wrong and nothing is absolutely right. It depends from which perspective are you talking about. Tonight, we had an experience, or like a real pleasure of sharing the experience of two, I would say really two outstanding ladies. One who grew up in her adoptive country, the other one grew up in her country of origin. But both of them are really very outstanding, very distinguished young ladies here. And but this shows you again that perspective plays a very, very important role. And humans, at the end of the day, no matter where you grow up, you are a human. Now, if we bring any two children from any two countries that have a very bloody history between them, bring 3-year-old child from country A and another one from country B, and these countries have had the most, incredible bloody history between both sides. Put them together, and they'll just play together. They'll happily play together. You don't find a child who'll tell the other, oh, you have a different color skin, I'm not playing with you. Oh, you have a different religion, a different belief, I'm not talking to you. Or like, oh, you vote for this party or that party, I'm not talking to you. No. You are like a child is just like a seed. And then it depends on what kind of land it grows in, what kind of nourishment that seed and fertilizers that seed is given. So the same human, if you grow up in one culture, you will be different with the same DNA. With the same DNA. So it is ultimate foolishness to look down upon someone or accuse someone and say, oh, they're so stupid believing in this or so stupid believing in that. Well, guess what? If you traded places, you're going to be a live copy of that other person. If you had his or her parents, if you had his or her culture, if you had his or her surroundings, you will be a copy of them. Humans are humans. We are whole humans. We all have the same feelings. We all want a better future for ourselves and for our families. Let's all keep this in mind. Let's all keep this in mind. You and I are from the same origin, no matter how different we might look from the outside. Dear viewers, thank you very much for being with us tonight. And until we meet again, please take very good care.